Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Earl.
And I'm Will Garcia.
And together we're the Hoops Guys. And we're continuing our 2014-2015 NBA previews today with the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
So, Will, how did the Bulls do last year?
For an Eastern Conference team, they did a pretty alright job. They went 48-34. They really picked up towards the latter part of the year. They were a third seed in the East, but they lost in the first round to the Wizards in 5 games. So, all in all, it was a pretty mixed bag year, but I'd say, especially in the latter half of the year, that they definitely exceeded expectations considering Derrick Rose's injury problems.
Yeah, I would concur. So considering it was a mixed bag, what were some of the things that went well for them last year?
Defense!
Yes.
Defense went really, really well. This was another one of those teams that you could definitely make the argument for them having the best defense in the league. They really forced opponents into taking tough shots, limited their ability to get to the free throw line. They've got great rim protectors in Joakim Noah and Taj Gibson, and great wing defenders. Tony Snell had a good year defensively as a rookie. Jimmy Butler had some injury problems, but still defended well. This was just a well-oiled defensive machine, and the stats back it up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were able to defend and contest shots so well that they were top 10 in defensive field goal percentage numbers in every single area. So, second in effective field goal percentage for opponents overall. Third in Ian Levy's XPPS from Nylon Calculus, which measures shot selection for yourself and for opponents. Second in actual points per shot for defense. They, like you mentioned, that they didn't really allow a whole lot of trips to the free throw line. They finished 4th in terms of free throw per field goal attempt for defense. And then, like I said, top 10 in each area.
Yeah, everywhere on the court you weren't.
Yeah, so they didn't really let you shoot well from the restricted area, from in the paint, from mid-range, from 3. They pretty much forced you into tough looks at every area of the court.
Yeah. Yeah, the defense was really solid. They were also really solid at offensive rebounding.
Yes.
It looks like they finished 9th in offensive rebound percentage, so that was pretty awesome for them. And
they got, on offense, they got to the line a decent amount, too. They were 9th in the league in free throw per field goal attempt, and they converted at a decent rate, too, ranking 7th in the league in free throw percentage.
Yeah, no, they did a really good job. And some players really stepped up. This was a really injury, just riddled season for this team, but a couple players really stepped up, including Taj Gibson. I think he got robbed for Sixth Man of the Year.
I agree.
Yeah. Sorry, Jamal. But he filled a bigger offensive role for this team, improved as a post scorer, continued his really solid defense. He can guard 3 through 5. Very mobile, but still a really good rim protector.
Very smart defender, too.
Yeah, absolutely. In the team defense, definitely a huge, huge deal. He had a great year. DJ Augustine was another good player for them.
Great pickup by them after Toronto waived him.
Absolutely. As an off-ball threat, Augustine did a great job. Shot the ball extremely well. Fit in pretty well with the team defensive scheme. He had a really solid year.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you can't talk about the Bulls without talking about Joakim Noah, one of my favorite players. Yeah. You gotta love Joakim Noah as a point center.
Yes. He definitely stepped up after Rose went out as kind of the offensive hub for the Bulls. He still wasn't really a major scoring threat himself, per se.
On this roster?
But he was able to really take on that facilitation and shot creation role for his teammates after Rose went out. And, of course, he continued to be an excellent defensive linchpin, not only in terms of, protecting the rim, but defending pick and roll as well, calling out coverages, making sure everybody was in the right place. And, when he did have to switch onto a perimeter player or something, he was able to really do well in that situation, which a lot of bigs can't do. And rightfully so, he won the Defensive Player of the Year award.
How many Defensive Players of the Year can get you 10 assists?
Not many. Not many at all.
Yeah, that's what's so great about Joakim Noah. He's one of the best, if not the best, center in basketball right now. Just based on what he's able to do. He has a sort of wide variety of skill sets on both ends of the court. A real two-way player, even if the scoring doesn't quite show it. He was really good, but not everything was really good this year, Josh.
No. They were, as great as they were defensively, they were just as bad offensively.
Yeah.
They turned it over way too much. They were 24th in the league in turnover rate. They took a lot of mid-range shots and not a lot of threes, whether from the corner or from above the break. And overall, they just didn't really convert on a high enough percentage of their shots.
Yeah, the ball just wasn't going in the basket.
Yeah. They were 30th in the league, dead last at effective field goal percentage.
Yep. This is just not good offense, which... Yeah. Rose wasn't able to come in and really do what they were expecting him to, and then he wasn't able to play. He played 10 games.
Yeah.
Speaking of health, this team only had 9 players play more than 60 games. And considering that Nazim Muhammad was one of those players, and he only got about 6 minutes a game.
Yeah.
This was an 8-man rotation all year.
Pretty much.
So the Thibs plays his players too many minutes argument. Well, he's only got 8.
Yeah.
So jury's out. Jimmy Butler had a really nasty turf toe injury all year. That hurt, and then he couldn't really hit his shot like he used to, and he didn't really do so well in an increased offensive role that made him create a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of things kind of went downhill for this team, and it was usually on one end of the court.
Yes.
But they brought in a lot of people this year, and I think that's going to help mitigate a lot of those issues, don't you think?
Oh, yes. They had quite an off-season. Maybe not Cavs-esque, but really good off-season, especially in terms of addressing their offensive woes. They were able to pick up Pau Gasol, who, a lot of people, especially the Lakers fans, were kind of down on him a little bit, and the media was kind of giving him a lot of crap. But part of that was how he was being used.
Yep.
If you go back to the 2012 Olympics and then, the World Cup this year, Pau was arguably the best player playing.
Yeah.
So, the thought that Pau's, past his... he should be put out to pasture, and he's just not that good a post guy anymore is complete bullshit in my mind.
You're right.
He's going to give them post shot creation abilities as well as an additional kind of facilitator from the post.
Absolutely.
Whether it's from the, in the post or the elbow, he's going to be helpful with that. Like I mentioned, he's one of the most highly skilled post players in the entire world.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a more consistent low post threat than Boozer. And given that he's a very smart player and a very unselfish player, I think he, along with Noah, should help ease any sort of playmaking burden on Rose, with Rose coming back after the injury issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big guy they added, Nikola Mirotic.
Yes.
This is the international man of mystery, I guess. But
yes.
It's not very
mysterious. The Austin Powers.
Exactly. Speaking of the Austin Power forward.
Yes, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, this guy looks to be the real deal in terms of a post scorer who can shoot from the perimeter, who can get out in transition. Offensively, This guy seems to be, at least in terms of scoring, a total juggernaut.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he can score in the post. He's got, not only is he capable of spacing, but he's a really good face-up player, too. So he's able to break the defense down off the dribble as a big. And, you know, while a lot of people haven't really gotten a chance to see as much of him as we'd like, including ourselves, this is a guy that almost everybody in the know in basketball widely considered as one of the very best players outside of the NBA prior to his signing with the Bulls this offseason. So the addition of Mirotic should not go unnoticed by Bulls fans.
Yeah, absolutely. They really added a lot to their big rotation this year. It's probably the best big rotation of all of basketball. And they really also beefed up their wing rotation a bit. By bringing in one of my favorite prospects in this year's draft.
Yes.
Doug McDermott.
Dougie McBucket!
Teach me how to Dougie.
Yes.
Yeah, I love this draft for them, Josh. Why don't you go on and tell the audience about what you think Doug's going to be able to do for this team?
So, at the bare minimum, Doug is going to really enhance their floor spacing ability. And, like, his floor is going to be an off-ball threat. Somewhat akin to, like, a Kyle Korver, Ray Allen with the Celtics and Heat-type player. That's his floor. So, at the bare minimum, he should be able to cause a lot of benefits for the offense in terms of drawing the defense with him, hitting, punishing the defense for leaving him. He's going to have a very nice impact strictly with that. But he's also very smart and very skilled offensively. So it's not just a shooter type. He's going to be able to score a little bit in post against smaller defenders.
A very underrated post game. He has the second best in the planet at the Dirk fade.
And you know, when you throw in the ability to face up and not only be able to take the early jumper in the defender's face, but also has some ball handling ability to beat the defender off the dribble, especially if he's being defended by bigger defenders who maybe aren't as quick. He'll be successful. There are some knocks on his athleticism. Some of that is race-related.
Yeah.
He is Caucasian, so people think he's less athletic than he might actually be. But his combine performance was akin to Rodney Hood, and you don't really hear anybody knocking Rodney Hood athletically.
I think the athleticism stuff gets overblown. Fun fact.
Yes.
In terms of combine vertical leap, both he and Russell Westbrook put in 36-inch vertical.
Yeah. So
white guys can jump.
The movie was somewhat wrong. I mean, go back a little bit, and there was Joe Alexander who could butt his head on the rim. So.
Yeah. I mean, look at the Plumlee brothers now. We're getting a little off topic, but no, I mean, Jan Vesely, the European Blake Griffin, who was not the European Blake Griffin.
Not even close.
But, yeah, I think that a lot of the athleticism concerns of Doug McDermott are extremely overblown, and his ability as an offensive player, particularly, who isn't going to be a total minus on defense and can fit within a team defense, he isn't going to be the best. He might not be the best isolation defender.
Yeah.
But in terms of a guy who's going to be able to fit into a scheme, you know, Bulls fans have a guy on their roster right now named Mike Dunleavy.
Dun.
Who is doing just that. So I think that a lot of those concerns shouldn't be there. Speaking of concerns, I have a few concerns about how Aaron Brooks fits into this backcourt.
Yeah.
Not that I don't like Aaron Brooks, not that I have any bones to pick with the guy, but the decision-making hasn't always been great. I get what the Bulls are going for here, and I think that you can chime in after after this, but if he can break the defense down, ideally what will happen is there will be a lot of open shooters, because he can definitely draw the defense in by beating his man. And with all these new three-point shooters coming in, that could be a really good thing. The question becomes, is his decision-making going to be good enough to get the ball to the open man?
And that is the question. He definitely fills a particularly need on the roster, though, behind Rose as a point guard. Heinrich's going to get most of those backup point guard minutes, but Heinrich at this point is not really a scoring threat himself that the defense has to really concern themselves with, especially off the dribble. So having somebody, and this has been something they've done the last few seasons, Nate Robinson being another great example, having somebody on the roster who's at least capable of breaking down the defense on the perimeter and getting into the lane and wrecking a little havoc, whether it's taking shots themselves, getting to the free throw line, or causing the defense to collapse and then therefore generating shots for other teammates. Right. Having somebody with that skill set is valuable given Rose's health issues of recent note. As we mentioned, the question is going to be, when he does do that, is he going to hit Doug and Mirotic and Snell and Jimmy, or even Taj and Noah if they're open under the basket, consistently enough to make that really impactful?
Exactly. One last player they added, one of my sleepers in this draft class, a guy I really like the game of, Cameron Bairstow.
Yep.
Yeah, and nobody was really talking about this guy, which is kind of crazy. He's kind of hard to play. 23.
I couldn't get you to shut up about this guy before the draft.
I'm not going to shut up about Cameron Bairstow. The guy put up 23 a night for New Mexico. Great, highly skilled big. Great mid-range game. He showed in college, which, mid-range shot isn't everyone's favorite shot. It's not mine either, but I'm happy he can hit it. Good post game, gritty defender. Really, I think that they did a great job. Funnily enough, on the Australians men's team, he was coached by Luke Longley.
There you go.
So there's a connection. There's a Bulls connection here.
Yep.
So maybe that's how they found out about him, or this, that, and the third. Either way, this guy can ball.
Yep.
I don't think he gets many minutes this year, but as a fifth or sixth big man, you can do a lot worse.
Yes, that is true.
And I think that if I'm a Bulls fan, he is someone that I am definitely watching when he's in the D League, keeping tabs on, because he could be a great rotation piece down the road.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of big dudes, they lost a big dude this year.
Yes, they finally cut ties with Carlos Boozer.
Yeah.
I think Boozer got a lot more flack than he deserved.
Agreed.
He was a very solid rebounder who was able to generate looks in the post, and he was a capable pick-and-pop guy, which, as noted, the Bulls really struggled offensively, so the fact that he was able to generate some decent looks in the post and function as somewhat of a stretch element as a big was definitely helpful. That said, the addition of Pau and Mirotic means that his absence isn't really going to be a problem, because both of those guys are going to be able to do what he did, and to a degree better. So, that's not a major loss. The loss of DJ Augustine might be a bigger one.
Yeah.
And I'll let you touch on that, since DJ was your ramen noodle all-star guy at the point.
Yeah, I love DJ Augustine. The guy is a great shooter, awesome off-ball threat, decent enough facilitator, a great guy for that Bulls team. He obviously went to the Pistons, which is, pretty cool, because I'm a Detroit guy. I want to see this guy play. But he did really well with Noah when Noah was playing kind of more of the facilitator role and DJ was operating a little more off-ball. One of the best perimeter shooters in all of basketball last year, in terms of really being able to hit those shots and doing a really, really great, consistent job at that. Awesome find for them. And a really interesting story, too, which I kind of gravitated towards, about how this guy gets cut, then all of a sudden he's dropping, 15 and 5 on a playoff team. Having said that, I think his skill set and what he was able to do as an off-ball shooter, they covered enough ground in their perimeter shooting to patch up that hole pretty well. For one, if Jimmy Butler returns to form, now that he doesn't have turf toe and he isn't being put in an offensive role that's just too big for him, they have Doug make best NCAA shooter of the year buckets you know, one of the best collegiate shooters ever, if not, I'm not gonna say yeah, I'll say it. In terms of 4 really great, consistent years of just putting the ball in the basket, probably the best of this decade.
Fair enough.
And they added Mirotic, who's a space threat. Tony Snell looks to have improved his jumper.
Yep.
They added guys who can shoot, and guys who can be off-ball threats. So I think that they covered that hole pretty well, kind of like how they covered the Boozer hole pretty well.
Yep.
So I don't think that these 2 losses are going to be very... I don't want to say significant because these are 2 good players. But in terms of the way the roster is constructed, they replaced them fine.
Yes. Given all these roster changes, what were the Bulls' possession delta?
Right on. So the possession delta, and what that basically just means is how many possessions did they bring in versus how many they lost through free agency or through, basically free agency. It's -3, which means that I don't think anyone's going to really have that much of a super expanded role. But you also have to keep in mind, this didn't count for Derrick Rose because
Rose is going to take a... Yeah.
Right. Derrick Rose not only played last year... Derrick Rose played last year, so he gets factored in to the regular roster. So Derrick Rose, when you factor that in, that he's coming back, some people are going to be taking smaller roles.
Yeah.
And that'll probably be Jimmy Butler.
Yep.
Joakim Noah might have the ball a bit less in terms of as a facilitator, so his turnovers might go down. And that'll be possessions.
His assists should too, yeah.
Yeah, his assists will go down too, but in terms of possessions, the turnovers will go down. Obviously they got rid of DJ Augustine, so Rose is going to be picking up a bulk of those possessions. And yeah, people are going to be taking smaller roles here. Pau's going to be taking a smaller role. At least somewhat, because he isn't going to be the number 1 option like he was on the Lakers.
I think he'll probably have a similar role to what he had on the Lakers, where he was the secondary guy to Kobe in terms of shot creation and
I meant compared to last year.
Priority.
Last year, Kobe was pretty much injured the entire game, or the entire year.
Yeah.
So compared to last year, which is what these numbers are based on, Pau's going to be probably taking a smaller role. Not saying it's going to be much smaller. It'll be interesting to see how the minute rotation breaks down. It could end up being a smaller role just because might not even be getting 30 minutes a night.
Yeah.
Just because there's so many mouths to feed here in this big rotation. So he might be someone to look out for. Gibson might take a somewhat smaller role on offense. So it'll be interesting to see who gets the shots and who gets the touches here.
Yeah.
So enough with my stat. What about your stat?
Okay, so I'm doing something for these previews where I'm looking at what I'm terming rest differential.
Yep.
Which is basically just looking at the difference between the team in question and their opponents over the course of the season in regards to road back-to-backs, 3 games in 4 days and 4 games in 5 days scenarios to kind of just get an overall perspective of across the season. Are they going to be a little more rested or less rested than their opponents? And the Bulls have a rest differential of 5, which it's a good thing it's not negative. And given that they have, Rose with the health concerns over the last few years, they have a couple older guys in Pau now, and then you also throw in, Noah was suffering from plantar fasciitis issues last year, and Jimmy had the turf toe. Having a positive rest differential should help them, along with the added depth that they added this year.
Absolutely. That'll definitely be something to watch out. The combination of more rest and good rotation.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you've been watching these team previews, we have a little segment we like to call 5 questions. I ask a couple questions to Josh asks a couple questions to me, and it's basically just a way for us to touch base on things that we might not have been able to cover. Yeah. So Josh is asking me a big question from the beginning. What is it?
Yeah. Can Derrick Rose stay healthy?
I don't know.
It's the multi-million-dollar question right now.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, maybe get busted Magic 8 Ball out or something. He could probably give you a better answer than I could.
They should try stealing Dumbledore from the Cavs.
Yeah, exactly.
Since the Cavs have apparently been using some sort of witchcraft in order to get those number 1 picks over the years. Maybe they can steal whoever they're using and hopefully work some magic on Derrick so that he can stay healthy.
Exactly. No, I don't know. Whoever fixed Stephen Curry's ankles for this year, maybe they can get them.
I have the feeling Rose should play in more games than 10 this year.
Yeah.
But I'm hesitant to say that he's going to be consistently healthy over the course of this season. And it's one of those really big questions, I think, considering if Rose is healthy and the additions, the Bulls could be a really, really strong team this year. So it's one of those questions I think everybody's going to be asking, and it's something people are going to be keeping a track of over the course of this season.
Absolutely. That really is the big question here. It's a question people have had for the past couple of years now. And really at this point, we don't know. We really don't know. And we really don't know if he's going to be the same player. Thibodeau was rough. Thibodeau was rough on him. The shots weren't falling. He wasn't really playing very well. So we'll see if he's able, for one, if he can stay healthy, and then for two, if he is healthy, what he's able to do. Because his game doesn't really lend itself well to slowing down.
No. His game, at least the game that the Bulls fans have come to expect from him, like in the MVP season, it's predicated on a lot of physical drives to the basket. And I mean, the last knee injury came more from a planting type thing off of a hop step. So it's something where physically he might be back. The question is somewhat mentally. When you suffer an injury like that and it's a big part of your playing style, you know, there's always at least some sort of nagging piece in the back of your head saying, you know, that's what happened the last time I planned it that way, or when I did that. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how both physically and mentally he's able to come back, and hopefully, you know, he comes back to play the way he used to play. But now it's one of those things that's up in the air, and, you know, everyone's going to be keeping an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely. The confidence aspect is going to be huge. Yep. Speaking of huge and physically big, that front court is huge.
It's stacked.
It's stacked. It's deep. It's a quadruple quarter pounder of big dudes.
Yep.
So in that huge front court, how many minutes do you think Nikola Mirotic is going to be able to get? How do you think they put him in?
Well, one thing is Thibs is kind of known for... Unfortunately, people qualify it as, you know, he's bad at managing his minutes. I think it's mostly, you know, he plays his best players as much as he can. And with this depth, hopefully that allows him a little more flexibility. Given that Jimmy had turf toe and Noah had the fascia issues with his feet last year, you would like to think that means slightly more minutes for those guys with the added depth, and hopefully that's what occurs. That said, for Nikola to get time, it's going to be tough because Noah's going to get a large amount of minutes at the center. Pau is probably going to absorb a fair amount of those backup center minutes, but he's also going to get a lot of minutes at power forward. And, of course, Taj should have gotten Sixth Man of the Year last year, in our opinion. Yeah. And so his minutes aren't really going to go down too much. So Mirotic might be struggling with some scraps. That said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some lineups, some triple big lineups where, nominally speaking, Mirotic might play the 3, and they might try to have Taj play defend the 3-man.
Taj could do that.
Yeah, so I think he'll get minutes. The question is how many, and I don't think, barring injury, he's going to get a whole lot, but having Mirotic be your 4th big is a massively awesome thing for the Bulls to have that problem.
Who was the 4th big last year? Because they had Boozer, they had Noah, they had Gibson, obviously.
Probably Nazi.
5-minute per game Nazi was their 4th.
Yeah, exactly. So, the added depth.
36-year-old 5-minute per game Nazi.
Yeah, the added depth should help, but it's still up to how the games play out to see how Thibs manages those minutes. But I have the feeling Mirotic is going to garner some minutes. I just don't know how many.
Exactly, and that kind of ties into my next question, is how will Coach Thibs manage his much wider and deeper roster this year? Last year they were on an 8-man rotation almost all year.
Yeah.
And now they have more than 8 guys who could realistically be starters in this league.
I think he'll expand his rotation a little bit. He's probably still not going to give a whole lot of minutes to the guys near the end of the bench, but I think we'll see guys like Nikola Mirotic and Dougie McBuckets get some minutes and be in the rotation. That said, they're still probably going to have the bulk of the minutes contained with the starting lineup, Taj, maybe some Snell, and everyone else will kind of be getting the leftovers. But I think we might see an expansion from a 8-man rotation to a 9 or 10-man rotation.
Absolutely. Another question I have for you is, do you think that Jimmy Butler returns to form as a shooter now that he's, 1, playing with a guy like Derrick Rose, and 2, not super banged up, and 3, not playing 90 minutes per game?
Yeah, well, with turf toe, I've never had turf toe, but it's spraining of the ligaments in your toe. So considering how fundamental your feet are to proper shooting form, and how you plant them and that sort of stuff, I'm sure that definitely had a major impact. And like we mentioned earlier, with Rose out, he had to take on a little more of an offensive creation role, not to a major degree like Noah, but he still had to put that in his game a little bit more. So it was a little less catch and shoot, off-ball type stuff, and a little more on-ball stuff. And it's really hard to be an efficient shooter off the dribble. Yeah. It's actually a really valuable skill set that not a whole lot of people do extremely well. Hi, Steph Curry.
Yeah.
But I think even if Rose isn't healthy, Jimmy should be somewhat better as a shooter just because the turf toe seems to be better. But if Rose can stay healthy and assume that primary shot creator role and allow Jimmy to be more tertiary and off-ball, I think that's going to also benefit his shooting percentage.
Absolutely.
But since you've kind of ball-hogged the questions, I've got the final ones for you.
Okay.
Can the Bulls break through to the finals this year?
Can Derrick Rose stay healthy? I think that's, those two questions are so intertwined. To be fair, this team improved so much that I think they could make the conference finals even if Derrick Rose went down.
Yeah, I agree.
With all the improvements that they've made. They added Pau Gasol. Holy cow, that's huge. And that's not even counting everybody else they added. That really filled some needs, especially perimeter shooting needs. So I think they solved a lot of needs this year. Whether or not Rose is there, this is going to be a great defense, and they address a lot of offensive problems. I don't think they can make it to the finals without someone who can really draw on that defense in, though. for them to be able to kick out to all these new 3-point shooters they added, or even to do a dump off like you mentioned. Yeah, so I think that if Derrick Rose stays healthy, and this team, everything gels properly, and the rotations get managed as well as we expect them to, I would not be surprised at all to see this team be able to beat the likes of Cleveland, to be able to make a finals.
Yeah.
And even maybe win.
Yeah, possible. Yeah, I think if things fall the right way and they can stay healthy for the most part, I think they're a team that's definitely in contention.
Yeah, I mean, the cards have to fall all the right ways, but at least they have the cards.
Yeah.
You know? So moving on from one segment to another, we have a little thing we like to do called 20, 50, 80. And in that, we just give our a prediction at 20% confidence, 50% confidence, and 80% confidence. Or something that's 20% likely, 50% likely, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And that way, that lets us do some more crazy off-the-wall stuff while also saying some things we think are actually going to happen. So, Josh, what crazy off-the-wall things could happen this year, and what's something that you think is actually going to happen?
Okay, so this might be time for sad music like with Bogut in our Golden State Warriors preview for your 20% likely. I think it's 20% likely that Rose plays over 70 games this year.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, I think he'll play more than 10, but I just don't feel comfortable expecting him to play more than 70 this year. My 50% likelihood is I think the Bulls make the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yep.
The only reason I don't put it higher is just because those health concerns. And as we saw, as strong as they are defensively, and obviously Pau and Mirotic and Doug McDermott and internal improvement are going to improve that offense, the Wizards were able to take them out in 5 despite being a lower seed because their offense was just really tough. And when you get into the playoffs, you kind of need either a systematic offense where you're generating a lot of clean, good looks through a ball and player movement, or you need somebody who can be an offensive fulcrum and create looks for themselves and for teammates by breaking down the defense. And without Rose, they didn't really have that. So I think in all likelihood they'll probably be in the Eastern Conference Finals, but I'll hedge my bet because of the question of Derrick Rose's health.
Right.
And then my 80% likely is that I think this Bulls offense might be the best of Thibodeau era by the end of this year.
Yeah, can that be like a 99% likely?
No, because I mean they did have 1 year near the beginning of Thibs' era where they were pretty good offensively. But I have the feeling the addition of Pau and Nikola Mirotic especially, I think those two are the guys who are going to get the most minutes of the new offensive additions. And, of course, Dougie McBuckets and improvement from Snell and Jimmy and improved confidence from Noah considering what he was able to do last year.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, they retain some of that even if Rose is healthy. I think they have the chance to be a much, much improved offensive team this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with those.
What are your predictions?
All right, so I think it's 20% likely that Joakim Noah records a 5x5 game this year. He had a couple last year. Here's one where he had it almost by halftime, but just couldn't get. I think it's like a steal or a block. And I think that with him being such a having such a diverse and large, expansive skill set, it really wouldn't surprise me for him to get the 5 points, the 5 boards, the 5 assists, the 5 rebounds, the 5 blocks. Because he's good at all of those. I think it's 50% likely that the Bulls become a top half 3-point shooting team this year, just because, for one, they added in Mirotic, McDermott. They added those 2 guys. That's going to help them out a lot. They also, I don't think that Jimmy Butler is going to shoot 28% from 3 this year, just because of the injury and the role differential. Tony Snell seems to be improving his shot. They still have Heinrich, and he had a down year last year a little bit. So I think that, and obviously they still have Mike Dunleavy. This team has shooters now, and I think that now they can move from the bottom portion of being able to operate in the perimeter to being pretty high up there. Maybe not top 10, but they'll be at least decent at it, and that's going to really
they'll
open
at
things
least
up for them.
be in the top 15.
Yeah. And then I think it's 80% likely, and put the sad music on again, that Derrick Rose doesn't return to full MVP 22, 23 point per game self. Just like you mentioned, the confidence issues, the fact that he looked bad in FIBA play, the fact that his game doesn't really lend itself well to slowing down. You know, it's not like a Kobe where he has that sort of post-up game that he can rely on. And so much of his success is based on getting to the teeth of the defense. And if he, one, isn't fully to form physically, which that seems to be taken care of for the most part, but two, isn't confident in his ability to do that, he's going to struggle. And the shooting on hit for him never was very good. So it's not like he really has anything else to really rely on. So I think he's going to struggle this year, at least compared to what people expect him to do, or what people would have expected him to do a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I'm cautiously optimistic on him. Speaking of cautiously optimistic, I'm pretty cautiously optimistic on this team really being able to be a contender.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be pretty good. You?
I think, obviously, it's going to depend on health, especially with Rose, but I think they have a high likelihood of being a Eastern Conference Finals team, even if Rose misses a decent amount of time.
I totally agree.
So if that's kind of the floor, respectively, I think it wouldn't be shocking if things fell the right way that they could get into the finals. So that said, I think they're a very, very good team, and especially defensively that they should crush it, and the improvement on offense should make them better than they were last year.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. That offense is going to be, if that could even be an average offense with that good of a defense, that team's going to be really good.
Yeah.
So I think that is the consensus on that. You know, so I think that this concludes our 2014-15 Bulls team preview. Feel free to leave a thumbs up on that like button if you like the video, a thumbs down if you dislike the video. Definitely, if you disliked it, leave a comment, maybe saying why.
Constructive criticism is much appreciated.
And or leave a comment if you have any feelings or thoughts on how the Bulls are going to do this year. We're going to read them. We want to know. So if you like this video, feel free to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more team previews. And I think that's a wrap.
Yeah.
All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. It's been a blast.
Take care.
Bye.